So I'm currently in Camp Kerry during the off season, so it's very quiet. And camp has a population of maybe 100 people, according to my hosts. I am starting my first hike, Caherconree. It's right there, and it's a relatively sunny day for Ireland, at least. But yeah, looking forward to starting my hike. It's going to be about 12-13 miles, but that's because I'm taking the long way through town. The actual hike itself is maybe 3 miles, but I'll be visiting the fort of the king, wizard, warrior, Cú Roí, and it's gonna be a good trip. So there's my target right there, and I think the fort is this guy. It's a little hard to tell, but that looks man-made. And I'm walking around in Upper Camp right now on this less busy road, which is nice. So onward. So the original plan was to take this road all the way up to the base of the mountain, but I ran into this sign of Dingle Way, and I think I might take it because it seems like more of an adventure. There's the Dingle Way sign, there's the trail. I think it cuts across the valley, and maybe it'll save me a little time, maybe it won't, but I kind of want to get into the valley and see if I can find the Finglas River. So I'm gonna try and go do that. Walking through the valley. It's a little spooky, but it's also really cool. Do you hear that? I hear a river. There it is. Also, I have no clue what these flowers are, but they smell amazing. So this has got to be the Finglas River, and the story goes that when his wife, who Cú Roí abducted from the other world, was plotting to kill him, she and her lover, co-conspirator, and also like best friend of Cú Roí, I feel like that's usually how it goes, had a plan that she would dump gallons and gallons and gallons of milk into the river so that her lover would know when Cú Roí was home and asleep so that he could kill him. So this is Finglas. Here we have some sheep. I tried to get closer to them, but they ran away, so this is as good as it's gonna get. One of the things I like best about Ireland is that, yeah, it rains almost every day, but when the sun comes out, it's so green and gorgeous, as if it just wants to prove to you how alive it is. Blackberries. And this is actually the first bit of heather I've seen growing in the wild. I'm sure there'll be some on the mountain, but apparently, according to Ellen, my lovely host, heather grows or blooms twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall, so I lucked out. I'm not sure what these are called, but Grandma loved these flowers. She had a bunch hanging on her porch. Assignment for when I get back. So, I thought I passed the trailhead, but turns out I did not, because I obviously looked lost, and this car full of guys pulled over and asked if I was looking for mushrooms. They're looking for mushrooms. Apparently they just found a nice field of mushrooms, but they got kicked off because it was private property. But they, in a one-sided sort of beneficial way, they directed me to the trailhead entrance. So going there now. There's a man yelling up there. I think he's collecting his sheep. Can't see him himself, but there are the sheep. I think there's a dog around, grouping them all together. So I'm at the trailhead right now, and the walk took a lot longer than I thought it would take. So it's probably not going to be too fun on the way back, but I'm starving, so I'm going to eat some of the brownies that Ellen made last night. So one of my more somewhat problematic hot takes is that I really like the sort of leveled appearance of the mountains here due to the Normans coming and taking all the trees for ships and houses and such. Is always great. I mean, not that getting lost is all too great if you aren't a solo female traveler, but I feel a little safer in these mountains. Don't know if that's unfounded, but we'll see if I get lost. So I'm really glad that I brought my hiking boots because it was quite buggy down near the base. But look at these incredible views. Insane. Literally, we're in the Valley of the Mad. Hoping that the sun might dry my boots up a little bit. Here's a shot of how bumpy the ground is. I feel like I'm walking in a street more than a trail. Just steps in a couple inches, but hey, better workout, right? And I'm not even that far. So I don't know if you can tell from the video, but this is actually a pretty steep climb. I'm not quite on my hands and knees, but almost. Ta-da! Climbing. I got a lot of sheep to keep me company, but otherwise I am the only hiker on the mountain. So my emergency plan, if I get hypothermia, is to chase one of these guys, in doing so raising my body temperature, and then once I've caught one, just burrow myself into its wool. Totally infallible emergency plan. So I'm on the ridge now, and so I'm on top of the fort right now. It appears that most of it was actually built into the side of the mountain. Oh wow, it just suddenly became quiet. There are my two escape plans right there. Riding on sheep all the way down. It's interesting, a lot of the stories say that these witches will appear in the form of animals, cows, pigs, sheep. Said that the pile of rocks over there was the fort. Yeah, I think I messed up because this here looks more like a fort. So I'm staying down there at camp. It's about a 10-minute walk from the beach. These circular structures. Towers, maybe? Not really sure. Well, I'm near the top. There's the peak of Caherconree. And look, a huddled up against a little cluster of rocks on the very peak of Caherconree, and I think my pronunciation has progressively gotten better and better as I've ascended. But I'm gonna pop my head up and do a little panoramic video, and I'm not gonna say anything because it's probably gonna be too windy to hear me anyway. So here we go. Okay, so maybe that's the peak. I'm gonna go check it out. Thank you, rock outcropping, for the shelter. So there's a cairn. That must mean that this is the top. That's where I I know because they have marked it with this beautiful pile of rocks for me. So, here are the panoramic views from the peak. There seems to be a little I saw something shining through these rocks here. I'll move so that you can see. These two rocks at first. I was like, maybe it's a hiker, and I rounded it and realized it wasn't really a big enough space for a hiker. So then I was like, ooh, magic. But once I actually checked out what was shining from between these rocks, it's a bottle. The sun must have just been hitting it so that it shone through those rocks. So one not so great thing about these wide open spaces with no trees is that if you gotta pee, there's not really a place to hide and pee. So I'm gonna hope that if anyone sees me, they'll just think I am a purple sheep. I am laying on top of a pile of rocks very close to losing my hat. This is where I am. The fort wall of Cú Roí. And the view they had from the castle. I revisited the fort and it really was giant. All these rocks here, I mean, just show the outline of how this thing was really hugging the top of this. It's not a peak, but I guess a little raised bit of the mountain. And it just goes on after that all the way to the side with the ocean. So the expectation was that I was gonna hate this walk back, but it's actually pretty nice. And look where I'm at. You know, you guys, I really have been thinking seriously about becoming a no red meat person. You're just too cute. So as I was hiking down from Caherconree yesterday, three sort of spiritual, magical things happened. Just as I was descending from the top back towards the fort, this gust of wind picked up this little creature, and I'm not sure what it was because it was too small to be a bird and also too delicate, but also too large to be an insect. and it had too much directionality to be a plant or something. It looked like it was fighting the wind. So I am choosing to believe that I saw a fairy. I stopped my video because people came and I didn't want to interrupt their lovely stroll. But the second thing that I saw was I was in the valley at this point, and I was crossing this shady road. It looked ill-kempt. It had grass springing up from the middle of it. There were trees that formed this sort of archway, dark, gloomy archway. But anyway, I decided to take this road back to camp. And some speck of sand or something got in my eye, and as I was rubbing it out, in the hedges, this eye saw this pitch black silhouette just pop up, and then as soon as my eyes could focus on it, it went back down. So I'm not even sure if I saw it. It could have been the trick of the light. It could have been, I don't know, another speck of something in the other eye, but I am choosing to believe that it was a ghost because I've never seen a ghost before, and seeing a ghost would be cool. And I did not go into the hedges to investigate because I'm not crazy. But if it was a ghost, it didn't do me any harm. Everyone is really friendly here, so I just stopped to chat with a swimmer who came by. But the third and most mystical, most spiritual connection I had on this descent from the mountain was I was passing some sheep, and on a whim I decided to baa at them, and one of them baaed back. So, peak spiritual connection there with the nature. So yesterday I hiked up Caherconree, this one here, and I was right there. Oh, there. I think that's the peak. It looks like the peak. This peak over here looks, there we go. That peak over there looks taller, but this one is definitely taller. That one is just closer. But anyway, I was here yesterday, and I figured I would now tell the myth associated with the mountain. The story goes that this king, Cú Roí, built a fortress on top of Caherconree. And one day, his friend, Cuchulainn, came up to him and said, you know, the portal to the other world is about to be opened. This only happens every once in a while, so why don't we go and ransack and raid the other world, you know, as men like to do. So, you know, Cú Roí was kind of hesitant, and he was not really feeling his most raider sort of mood. But Cuchulainn told him that if Cú Roí, this powerful wizard, magical warrior king, went with him to the other world, then Cuchulainn would allow Cú Roí to take his choice, have the first choice of the spoils. So Cú Roí couldn't pass that up. They went to the nearby portal of the underworld, not the underworld, the other world, which the text that I read didn't actually say this, but I think the other world is fairyland. They raided, and they took treasures, this cauldron of plenty or something or other, these magical cows, and finally the king of the other world, they took his daughter, Blaned. And when they returned back to the human realm, Cú Roí said, you know, of the spoils, I'll take Blaned, thank you very much. And Cuchulainn kind of laughed at him, and he was like, you know, I didn't plan on giving you anything at all, ha. You won't get anything. And so Cú Roí got angry, and he picked Cuchulainn up, threw him to the ground, and he threw him so hard that Cuchulainn went into the ground up to his shoulders. And he didn't get hurt, but he was embarrassed. And the Cuchulain's men who were with him didn't dare fight back against Cú Roí because he was just too powerful. So Cú Roí picked up Blanid, picked up the spoils, the magical cows, the cauldron, and hiked up back to his fortress on Caherconree. And so Cuchulain was pretty mad, and he vowed to get his revenge. Flash forward a bit, and you know, Cú Roí wasn't a bad husband, but Blanid missed home. It was lonely on the mountain, cold, not much to do. The local Tesco was miles and miles and miles away. And so, even though Cuchulain was also one of her captors, I don't know, maybe he was better looking, Blanid decided to start seeing him. They became lovers behind Cú Roí's back, and then they plotted to kill Cú Roí so that Blanid could escape from the fortress. So the thing about Cú Roí, the magical king, wizard, warrior, was he was never really home. He was always traveling around Ireland, traveling around to other countries and exploring, going on quests. So he was rarely home. So that was problem number one, made him hard to kill. Problem number two was he kept his soul separate from his body. So apparently, and Blanid found this out through flattery because her husband kept it a secret. Because that's the best way to protect your soul, I guess, is to keep it a secret of where to find it. But anyway, so Blanid, through flattery and her womanly wiles, got Cú Roí to tell her that his soul, and this is where it gets a little weird, was in the core of an apple in the belly of a salmon that swam in a local lake, and the salmon was only there once every 7 years, something like that. So needless to say, difficult to get this guy's soul, but you know, 7 years pass, and Blanid tells Cuchulain, you know, time to go get and kill the soul of the king in the apple, in the fish in the lake. And so Cuchulain says all right, and he goes fishing, and he catches the salmon and slits its belly open, takes the apple out, and crushes the apple into the ground. So no more soul. And then that night, Cú Roí just happened to be home. And the thing about his fortress is it has this magical defense where it has it spins, the outer wall spins, and so you can never find the entrance unless Cú Roí wants you to. But this night, Blanid, through her womanly wiles again, you know, distracted Cú Roí, and so Cú Roí forgot to set the enchantment on the castle walls that night. And then Blanid told Cuchulain to wait in the valley, and when the time came, when Cú Roí was asleep, she would send him a signal that it was time to come up to the mountain and kill Cú Roí in bed. And so the couple went to bed that night, and Cú Roí fell asleep eventually, and Blanid started dumping gallons and gallons and gallons of milk into the river Finglas, which actually means white river, or white stream, and which runs from the top of the mountain all the way into the valley. And the river turned white, and that's how it got its name. And when Cuchulain and his men saw that the river was white, they knew it was time to go up and kill Cú Roí, so they hiked up the mountain. Wow, these waves are getting really close. I better move soon. They hiked up the mountain and they killed Cú Roí. And then they hightailed it down the mountain. And one of Cú Roí's druid friends just happened to be nearby. And he saw the lovers leaving the fortress in a hurry, and he suspected that something was up, and he just knew that, oh, you know, they must have killed Cú Roí and were now heading down the mountain. So he chased after them, and he gained on them as they were, you know, dashing down the mountain. And I suppose, you know, having magical powers probably helps with that too. And he got close enough to snatch Blenhead, and he grabbed onto her and jumped off the edge of the cliff, killing himself and Blenhead. And so no one really gets a happy ending in this story. So there's the mountain again, and then this is the sea. It's very rough today. So I'm not really sure what the lesson of the story is. It's sad and violent and very magical. Maybe the moral of the story is that women shouldn't kill their husbands, but also men shouldn't take women away from their families and force them to marry them. So it's depending on who tells the story, and some details do shift. Some storytellers take the side of Cú Roí and others take the side of Blenhead, and I think that's one of the things that actually makes the story super interesting. So we'll see how it comes into play as I'm researching and writing for my current project.